Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. I am Sean Williams, aka Mr. President, and welcome to the Safe Room, a safe space for entrepreneurs and business owners right here in Toronto to share their personal and professional stories. Today, we have a fantastic guest. I got her bio pulled up right here, and oh boy, it's jam packed. It is jam packed. Let me just start off with this. She is an award winning bilingual audience engagement expert. Honestly, I wish I knew exactly what that was, but it sounds impressive. It seems like you know how to engage with an audience, so that's great to hear. Also, a little known fact: she was named Canada's top 30 under 30 marketing professionals by Marketing Magazine. I don't think y'all understand. Let me repeat that one more time. Top 30 under 30. That is an amazing accomplishment. Her expertise in her career using technology to communicate ideas and mobilize people to help those ideas come to fruition is just absolutely amazing. I got to meet her back a while, and I'm so glad to have her here on Love Bay Radio having this conversation. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, the wonderful Miss Sarah Beach. Sarah, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Sean?
I'm doing fantastic. And honestly, like I was reading your bio, and I just thought, wow, absolutely impressive.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Of course, of course. We're gonna have a really great conversation about your company, SB Consulting. We're gonna get into the nitty gritty, all the details, what makes you want to get into marketing, starting a marketing agency. I know with marketing as a whole, it has become the mecca for a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs that they're trying to implement and trying to execute at a consistent level. So we're definitely going to talk about that, talk about your personal journey. But before we get into all of that, we have to start off with our opening segment, the hot seat. And for this, Sarah, I just have four simple questions. Don't worry, the name is not as intimidating.
I'm ready.
Okay, perfect, perfect. So, first question I want to ask you. So, outside the work that you do as an audience engagement expert and the founder of SB Consulting, tell me something about yourself in one sentence.
I love my downtime.
Okay,
I
okay.
love my
I
downtime.
I feel you. I feel you. So okay, so you say you love your downtime. So in your downtime, what exactly do you do? Because I know for a lot of people it tends to vary.
Yeah, really downtime to me is just spending time with loved ones, hanging out with family, hanging out with friends, cooking, entertaining, just being surrounded by the people that bring you the most joy.
I love that. That's so beautiful. It's like, I feel like for a lot of us, we're always go, go, go. We never get the chance to really, sit down and spend time with your loved ones, with your family. For me, I work so hard on the things that I do. I try to do my best to say, I want to like spend time, but sometimes like it's hard. It's really hard. So I'm really glad that you are finding that downtime to do what you need to do to, spend time with your loved ones because it's so important.
It is, and you gotta just make time for it. You gotta prioritize it. However you choose to do it, whatever it is that brings you joy with whomever it is, you just gotta make it a priority as much as the work.
Okay, okay, that's perfect. Speaking of that, it kind of goes into the second question. So, what is your definition of a self-care day? Just like what is like a perfect
Ooh.
outline of this is what I'm doing if I'm Sarah for a self-care day?
Oh my goodness, that's a hard question. I do, I think work hard, play hard. So if you can, have that spa day, get your little massage or do whatever it is you need to do, whether it's your nails, whatever you prefer. For me, that's what I love to do. But really having no plans. So just having complete agency over my time to just enjoy it any way that I want, whether that's just hanging out and watching TV or going to do something for me. That could be just going out to dinner, watching a movie, just something that I really want to do in that moment.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear. You mentioned TV. Honestly, I don't know the last time I haven't touched TV, to be honest.
But I have shows I like to follow, so I do like to watch those. That is a priority for me to like binge watch some of my favorite shows.
That's good to hear. I know one show that everyone is like talking about is Succession. Have you heard of that show?
I loved it. Loved it. Succession was definitely one of the shows I watched on my self-care. I love Succession. It was such a great show. Spoke to me
I'm
on so
still
many levels, and it was
behind.
well written. Oh, I'm not going to spoil it for you. It's good. It is good.
I'm so behind. Like I again, I need to have more downtime to watch those shows. Like, and I'm not fact, I'm not really up to date with most of like the popular shows that you would see on TV. So, for example, I remember at one point when Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead were like such a huge thing. I've not seen one episode of either shows, not one.
I did not get into Game of Thrones. I have to say, I tried, and I was just like, I just couldn't do it. Walking Dead, I think I watched for maybe like 2 seasons, but then it was just too much walking, too much dead. I couldn't keep going on it either.
I love that answer. Too much walking, too much dead. Yeah, but I just need something a little bit in the middle, and this show is just not it for me. Okay.
Exactly. It was good for what it was in the moment, but I know then there was a show of people were talking about the show after the show. Like it really became a thing, but I fell off that.
Yeah, definitely. But I know you mentioned spa. That's something I think a lot of people think about when it comes to self care. And I think spa doesn't have to always just be I gotta go out and spend my money to go to a spa. I can do it in the comforts of my home. Just relax. Do my own little thing. So I like that.
Absolutely. You can definitely have your spa day at home, just, in your bathroom with a candle, whatever little things that you enjoy. I like aromatics, so I always have candles burning in the house. So that's something for me that I really love.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Okay, going on to the third question I have here. An interesting fact that you rarely share about yourself.
Ooh. Um, I'm ambidextrous. I can write with my left and my right hand. I tend to, I'm playing baseball, which I rarely do nowadays, but used to. I bat on the opposite side. I always
Wait,
swing on the on the left side of things. So, yeah,
hold on, hold on. You watch baseball? Like you used to play baseball, or do you watch it as well?
I watch a Jays game every now and again. I'm not a diehard, but I used to love to play softball when I was in school. So I played all sports, softball included, but always bat on the other
Okay.
side.
All right. I'm sorry. Like I'm just a little excited because like I feel like it's so rare to meet people who just know about baseball, whether it's like they played it or they watched it. I just had a conversation with someone like over a month ago, and they watch baseball as like probably more than me. But I watch baseball. I used to play baseball as well back in high school. So I mean, anytime I hear someone, especially like someone black, say that they watch baseball, I'm like, yes, like we might have to connect. We might have to go to a Jays game in the future.
Let's do it. Let's do it. The stadium is beautiful. They revamped it. It's so nice.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And but that's kind of interesting that you're ambidextrous because I feel like that's such a unique skill, especially for the work that you do. I mean, probably comes hand in hand, no pun intended. But I mean, like, I feel like that's really unique, and I feel like that's something that a lot of people, when they kind of find out to be like there are ambidextrous, they don't share enough. So I like that. I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's great to hear. And since you said you play softball, we might have to do something like in person where like we have to see like the you in action with the
Let's
softball, whether
do
it's like you
it. Let's make a team. We'll make a Love Bay team.
you know what? I would love to do that. That would be fantastic. I love that. Okay. So my final question here for the hot seat segment. What is your personal safe room? So, what is a safe space that allows you to be you? It
Mm.
could be a mental safe space, it could be a physical safe space, whatever you want to share. What is that personal safe room for you?
My personal safe room, I think it's my kitchen. I think it's like my kitchen island because I like to have people over, but then I also like to just spend time there, sit, write, journal, work. It's just kind of my all-purpose area. So I really and snack. I like to snack while I'm getting some work done. It's really just it's just where I feel the safest. It's where I feel the most creative, and it's where I do a lot of entertaining as well. So I get to spend time with people that I care about, and also just spend time with myself.
I totally agree. I totally agree because it's something about a kitchen. Your kitchen gives you again a sense of security, and especially on the design, how it looks, it can give you that sense where like, you know what, I just want to spend some time like in here and just again do some work, maybe get a snack, just clear my
Yeah.
thoughts. Like I feel like that's so important. I feel like that's a lot of thing that a lot of people don't talk about as well, that the kitchen can bring you some type of serenity in terms of how you're
Mhm.
feeling. Whether if you're feeling great, you might want to grab a snack for a reward. Maybe if you're feeling a little bit down, maybe you just want to escape somewhere else in your house just to the kitchen so you can just kind of rethink, regather your thoughts. Or maybe you're just having a normal day and you just want to work in the kitchen. Sometimes I won't lie, I'll be just chilling in the
Exactly.
kitchen, just on my phone, do my stuff, or like I'll bring my laptop, like I'm just gonna like work here. And it's like it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, the thing I also really like about it is when people come over, that's the spot where we share. That's the place where we hold the most space together is in the kitchen. So I, for that, it holds a lot of memories.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, that was all the questions I have for the hot seat. I Some very interesting answers. I will say that. You did great. You did great.
That was awesome. I loved it.
Okay, I'm glad that you loved it. Now we're getting to the big heavy questions now. So here we
I'm
go.
ready.
Here we go. All right. So first things first, I want you to explain just what SB Consulting is. What is the work that you personally do for your company? And talk about the vision that you have once you wanted to start SB Consulting, when you want to launch this marketing agency. Just what was the vision and what were some of the values that you wanted to employ with your clients, wanting to revamp their audience? Because I know for a lot of people, again, marketing, it's not easy. It's probably one of the hardest aspects to run the business, making sure that you're getting your message out to that niche, whatever that niche may be for your audience, or whether it's just managing other aspects, whether it's social media management, whether it's websites, or maybe it's email marketing. There's so many things that kind of fit into that realm. So I would like to ask you, like, how did SB Consulting get started? What role do you play currently right now in SB Consulting? And how has the vision and the values kind of correlate to where you want to share it with your clients about, okay, if you're looking to revamp your audience, these are the values that provide, and this is the vision that we're trying to push forward.
Yeah, those are great questions. The vision of SB Consulting is really focused on creating equitable communities and equitable outcomes for all. And the way that it came about was really me wanting to do more work with community for community. I had the great fortune of starting my career in corporate Canada, and I started in technology. Then I went to medical devices. I worked in QSR, which is quick service restaurant. I've worked with some of the world's leading brands. And I really enjoyed my time in corporate Canada, and I had an opportunity to really hone my skills. I had an opportunity to take big risks with big budgets, which really helped me hone my craft. But what I found is that I wanted to be closer to purpose. I didn't want to focus so much on profit. I really wanted to focus on purpose. And that was one of the reasons that led me to found SB Consulting, to really focus on having that social impact and working with organizations that are cause-based and value-driven, and helping them envision, strategize, brand, and execute their evolution so that we can engage their key audiences and inspire them through marketing, branding, and communication to have a positive social impact. So at SB Consulting, we work with private, public sector, nonprofit organizations that want to have a positive social impact and help them to empower others to do that. And the impetus was really just wanting to achieve our vision, wanting to not only focus on the profit, but focus on the purpose and really being mission focused and mission driven in the work that we're doing. And and I really had the opportunity to take everything that I learned from corporate Canada and kind of start my own shop and make that more accessible to organizations that are doing important work in community for community.
All right, that's a lot. That is a lot, but it's great to hear that from that previous experience, it made you want to continue that push to help out your community. And for as consultant, it wasn't about the profitability side of things, but more just the mission driven, the mission focus, which I think for a lot of organizations, sometimes it kind of gets lost in the sauce in a way. I guess that if you want to put it that way, it gets lost in the sauce where kind of focus a little bit more on the profitability than the market, and there's not really like I wouldn't even say an even balance, but like a respective balance. Because sometimes you might need to prioritize certain aspects of a business over the other, but sometimes again, if you want to be able to make that profitability, you're going to need to be able to show individuals, show clients about the mission, the values that you have, and how you can build upon these relationships. For a lot of people, they kind of assume I'm going to create something and then I'm just going to tell people that I'm doing this and then people are going to buy it. But then at the same time, it's wait, but who are you? And how do I know that me, invest my time in your service? Is this going to be something that, we can actually build a relationship on? Or is it just more like you're trying to get a quick buck? It's just very transactional, but there's no relationship in between.
Exactly. On that reality, profitability and purpose, they're not necessarily separate. And when you spend time to get to know your audience, you're able to build loyalty in different ways. You're able to build engagement in different ways, and you're not worried so much about the transaction. And that was one thing that we really do differently at SB Consulting. Is, we're not looking at those quarterly numbers in the same way that sometimes organizations are, because they have to achieve those metrics. They have shareholders they have to answer to, evident numbers they have to crunch. We're really measuring on impact. So we're really looking at, who are we engaging? What is behavior? Are they achieving the desired outcomes? Are they achieving the goals that we set? What does success look and feel like? And we're able to quantify and qualify our metrics in different ways to really ensure that we're evolving that movement forward. It doesn't mean that we're missing goals. We're absolutely achieving those numbers, but we're able to then quantify that differently in different ways so that we're looking at something holistically as a way to create a better outcome, not just achieving a one-off purpose.
Yeah, I really, really resonate with that. It's so important that you implement those like factors into any business, period. It's not just for you. I think you've understood how crucial those elements are, allowing you to connect with your clients and again, build upon those, engagements. Again, it's all about figuring out how are you engaging with your audience. And again, metrics kind of differ for a lot of business organizations. Sometimes it's how much money are we making? It's like what is the quarterly sales, looking like? For other people, it's probably the impact. So it's like we're not really so quantitative data driven, but we're trying to see on like the qualitative data side of things. Like, what are we actually doing that's bringing impact to these set communities or set areas? So I think that's really, really important for a lot of people to understand. Because again, it really will differ. So I'm not saying everyone here will fully like grasp, but I think it's still good to hear it from that perspective because sometimes you want the best of both worlds. You want the quantitative, but you want the qualitative. And there's nothing wrong with having both. I think it's also the perspective and having the mindset to know what the direction of the business is going and what we might have to just push in a little bit further in order to get to that subset goal as well.
Exactly. And it's really having purpose at the center. I'll give you an example. One of our clients that focuses on planting trees. So, we raise funds and raise donations in order to plant more trees. So you have those both qualitative, quantitative aspects that are working in harmony to have that positive social impact. And that becomes part of your brand story. That becomes part of how you find new audiences. That becomes how you build deeper engagement with the audience that you have. So it's really around, finding what resonates and being able to show and share that in different ways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, for anyone who's coming in, you are listening to The Safe Room right here on Love Bay Radio. I'm here with Sarah Beach. She is an audience engagement expert and the founder of Esbe Consulting. We are having a really good conversation to start, and I know it's going to get even more juicier. The more I ask the question, I know you're going to be like giving us more tidbits, more pieces of knowledge and gems. So let's get on to the next question that I want to ask you. So I was doing some digging because obviously I want to make sure that I get the right stuff on you, but there's also things I want to like pick your brain on. So when I was doing some digging, I noticed that in the past you used to do a little bit of work in terms of like social justice activism. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. This is like a light bulb just went in my brain. Okay, like, this is something I need to like dive deep into because, like, for myself, I really love that. So tell me, how did that journey get started and how your transition into starting SB Consulting? Were there some things that you took away from, working as a social justice activist or were within the realm of social justice activism that you implemented a little bit into SB Consulting? So that way it's like, I know what I was doing this at one point. Now I'm doing this whole completely different thing, but there's still things that I'm pulling away from that past experience to what I'm doing right now. So first, I want to know, like, how did you get started into social justice activism?
Still doing it. It's one and the same. FB Consulting is very much aligned with my social justice work and creating social change. It's a hard question. When did I get started into it? I feel I was born into it because of my gender and because of my race in a lot of ways. I think for me, professionally, something really crystallized back in 2014. And that's when Michael Brown was murdered by Darren Wilson in Ferguson, Missouri. And I remember at that time, that's when the Black Lives Matter movement really took off. And there was a call from the folks who were protesting in Missouri to come and join the movement. And I remember telling my boss at the time, I said, I'm going to go protest in Missouri, in Ferguson. If I don't come back, use my vacation time. If I run out of vacation time, don't pay me, but I'll be back for my job. And I left with my for a lawyer, and I joined a small Canadian contingent. There were 4 of us who went from Canada down to Missouri. We drove all night. We took turns driving, and as soon as we got on the ground, we were joining others in protest. And I think that was one of the first. That was one of the first times I can recall in my life fearing for my life. But at that point, the outcome mattered more. It was more about what we were doing. It was more about the purpose of us being present that superseded anything else. And I remember coming back from Ferguson and reevaluating my professional work, wondering how I can get better at doing more work with community for community. And, wanting to kind of bridge that gap a little bit more where I wasn't so focused or as focused on solely doing corporate work, but really focused on having a positive social impact and really defining what that space entailed. And fast forward a couple of years from then, and I don't know if you remember the Pepsi commercial of Kendall Jenner.
Yeah.
So that was released. And having worked marketing on the corporate side, I know all of the steps that it takes in order to get something into market. And, just for anyone else, for our listeners who may not be familiar with the commercial, there were a row of police on one side and a row of protesters on the other side. Kendall Jenner comes out of nowhere and presents a Pepsi to one of the police officers, who cracks it open, takes a sip, pauses, gives that smile of satisfaction, and then the crowd erupts and it turns into the celebration. And the commercial just completely missed the mark. It was tremendously insensitive and offensive, and there was a lot of criticism that was provided to Pepsi, so much that they actually pulled the commercial. But my question as a marketer was, how was that signed off? How did folks not realize what they were doing and why that was so problematic? Who was in the room when these decisions were being made? Who decided that this was something that we needed to take from concept to conception? Like, who decided this? And at that point, I realized that I wanted to help guide people to market authentically. I wanted to help them create content and create campaigns that were culturally competent. I wanted to really help create social change in socially responsible ways to evolve the movement and more inclusive, and really achieve the desired outcomes. And that's really where SB Consulting began back in 2017.
Wow. Yeah, I did see the whole Jenner Pepsi commercial, and it did spark a lot of, propaganda. But I feel like, in the world we live in, propaganda is kind of like breathing air. Like you needed to survive in a ways when it comes to, like, the media and how things run. But I really like how once, that whole situation with the Black Lives Matter back in Ferguson, you saying, I'm gonna leave my job and I'm gonna go out to this situation that's happening right now. And something changed in that moment where you started to resonate and say, you know what, like I want to implement this more, whether it's in my company or just the work that I do, which I commend that because for a lot of people, if there's things that they don't understand, they just leave it alone. For a lot of us, if there's things that we just don't have enough knowledge or information on, then we just feel to leave it on the side. But for you, I feel like you mentioned, it was like kind of born into you. There was like this passion inside that was just tapped in based on a very, very huge situation at the moment back in 2014. So I really love how now you want to figure out how can these campaigns be more culturally competent, making it more social responsible. And you mentioned social responsible because like the first thing I thought like, oh, was corporate social responsibility. That was something I actually studied during my time at university. And I think that's so important for a lot of organizations. They kind of do the work, but it's very unethical. And depending on who you have in your back pocket, whether it's like other shareholders or you're working with investors and suppliers, then you might not be called out from the public who are the real people who are like suffering through this, and they need to let you know like, hey, like you can't be doing this, like this isn't right, and it makes you think like, how come people can't go on social media and talk about the Pepsi situation with Kendall Jenner and make a change? Well, for Pepsi, it's like, unless you're someone who's like gonna stop us from making money, then I don't know if like we're gonna even listen to you. Because sometimes the only way that you're gonna hurt a lot of businesses is with their wallets.
Yeah, and I think that's something where social media has kept a lot of organizations in check in that way. And it's not social media, it's the people behind social media, right? It's the people on the platforms that have kept folks in check. But I also think, people, if they're shown, if they know how to do better, can do better. And I think sometimes it's that education component, right? So to make sure that we know, or people are informed prior to doing something, there's another way that we can achieve the same outcome. One that is inclusive, one that is going to achieve the objective, one that's going to help create social change. So it's not something that we're just talking about. It's not just a checkbox that we're ticking, but it actually becomes part of the organizational ethos. It becomes part of the culture. It becomes part of the overall objective. And I think one thing that has changed a lot is decision makers understand that there's value in that because that's what consumers have said they value. And I think there are a lot of brands that, live that purpose really well. Patagonia, I think, is a really good example of that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And just ask like a little follow-up question. So again, you've been saying that you want to implement campaigns that are more culturally competent. So could you possibly name an example of like any recent campaign where you talked with a client and maybe it was something that you had to figure out on, okay, this is the idea that you want to bring, but how can we make sure that it is social responsible, that it's, respecting the current situation. We're not trying to create this propaganda image.
Yeah. Um, I worked with a client recently. We were talking about gender-based violence in immigrant refugee communities. And immediately we have to make a distinction by ensuring that the population at large understands that there's not more violence in immigrant and refugee communities. Rather, we're trying to create awareness about resources that exist for folks who are at risk and or survivors of domestic violence in immigrant and refugee communities. And the reason why we have to make that distinction is because there's so many different stereotypes that exist within the public at large that can allow that message to be misconstrued. And that was something we dealt with on the front end. So we ensured that perception was negated before folks could really have an opportunity to envision it. And that was something that we really wanted to be cognizant of. And then, of course, make sure that the campaign, the messaging, the content is culturally competent to the communities that we seek to serve.
Yeah, definitely for sure. I feel like when you have a lot of like sensitive topics today, you want to make sure that you're being respectful, not about just the information, but also the audience as well. It shouldn't come off in a disrespectful way or very ignorant way where you're talking about something, but you have no clue of the actual context. That's why I feel like sometimes for me being a podcaster, I see a lot of podcasts, whether it's on TikTok, social media in general, where you're hear certain perspectives on certain topics. And sometimes like I don't want to jump in here, but sometimes you can just tell based on the behavioral attitudes that there are some people who take the time to research, but then there's also other people who kind of just go with the crowd and, figure out what they hear is like what they actually believe. So I really like for you as a marketing agency with SB Consulting, those are things that you want to address before actually diving into the execution process of everything, making sure that there is some awareness and some understanding about if we're going to be doing this, then we need to make sure that we're understanding what we're actually doing before we actually put the pieces together.
Yeah, and it's really important that that message is understood throughout the organization, because we don't just want to work on a one-off. We want to make sure that we're leaving the clients that we work with the resources they need to take that into phase two, or take that into their next campaign or their next program or the next iteration of their external marketing and communication and branding activities. So it's really important that it becomes a learning opportunity for anyone that's working on the file, but something that we can replicate for future.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, go on to the next question I have. So, I want you to define some of the services that you do offer for SB Consultant and how much market research did you put into this? And what I mean by that is when you were developing SB Consultant, were these services something that you had an idea like, okay, this is actually what I want to do based on my own personal experience? Maybe at one point you had some services and then based on what you were doing, someone would probably reach out to you, whether it was a client, maybe a colleague, and say, "Hey, you know what, Sarah? Like, I think you'd be good if you did this, or I think it would be good if you implemented this into the work that you're doing." And you decided to do more digging upon, like, all right, let's see if people agree with that sentence. And if so, then I guess this is something I'm gonna have to put in. So, first question again, list out some of the services that you do offer for SB Consultant. And in addition, was there any market research that you had to implement at some point when putting in these services?
So the services that we offer at SD Consulting: strategic marketing, branding, communication, web design, media relations, public relations, stakeholder engagement, program and reporting, research and evaluation, and media training. To answer your question around research, a lot of that was really done in throughout my career. It was understanding what makes a good strategic plan, how audiences relate um, to materials, and really understanding the behaviors and attributes and what levers will help them along each of the journeys. So the research part comes not only in the services, but how they're paired together to help clients achieve their outcome. And yes, there were some services that we started offering that weren't initially part of the scope of work. And that's because they were very client driven. Media training, for instance, was one of them. That's something that I've done a lot in my career. And it was a client that approached me to create a workshop and facilitate that with their organization. And then it became part of our service offering. Another was, again, around workshop facilitation that came out of my research that I did for my master's in communication studies, media technology, and culture, which was really about multiculturalism in Canada. That became a workshop that we began offering as well. So part of it was really just rooted in experience, and part of it was meeting the needs of our audience.
Yeah, and honestly, can I first just say the fact that you're able to list all your services in one go and you didn't stutter, that's impressive because I heard a lot. I was like, whoa, it's amazing. But it's great to see that you have all those things and it was based off the work that you were doing because for a lot of us, again, when we start a business, it's usually based on past experience that we implement something and this is something we want to do, but there's nothing wrong with trying, something completely different based on the reaction or feedback from your audience. And I think that's something for a lot of people. They ask the question, when do I really start to focus on market research? So that's a question I actually want to ask you right now. Like, when do you feel like for anyone who's probably, and you could even say this for yourself, what like market research comes into play? Like, do you feel it's like the first couple months when you're operating a business? Is it probably within after the first year, a couple years? Like, what would you say just based on your own take?
Always, always. We are data led and research informed with everything that we do. So research and data governs every decision. Before we take a project, when we start a project, when we kick off a project, data is really at the center. The source of that information comes from different places. Sometimes it comes from the client. It always has to do with the audience. So it always has to do with the audience journey, the audience needs, the behaviors of our audience, the attributes of our audience, really understanding who we want to engage and why, and what the value is that they're going to derive from whatever it is that we're sharing. Research is always at the forefront, and it should always lead anything you do. Even in our service offerings, it was that understanding of, well, what do folks need? What do we need to create a social impact? How do we empower individuals with the resources that are required? How do we work with private, public, and non-for-profit organizations to help support them in their development and help to support them in the development of their marketing plans and their strategies? It was really based on research. What are some of the pain points? What are currently experiencing? And that research can be, primary research. It can be research where you're going out and getting information by asking people. It can be secondary research where you're, going on Google and going through a bunch of resources, whether electronic or physical, to understand where some of the gaps are in the industry and where you might be able to provide some support. But it's really important that you lead with research. I think that's a general assumption that people often don't make, and that was one that we really wanted to ensure we corrected. Folks make assumptions sometimes about what they think they understand without looking at the data, and the data can often reveal things that you may not otherwise have known. So I think it's really important to start just by understanding what some of those factors may be.
Yeah, definitely. That's such an important aspect, understanding information, understanding the different types of research you mentioned. Like there's the primary, the secondary. So it's always also fact checking, being able to fact check, making sure that, okay, I'm not going to look at one source and just kind of go off and say, all right, now we're good. It's like, no, you got to figure out what else is out there. And even when it comes to information, sometimes the information you may be looking for, you may have to do like a real deep dive into where you can find those pages. Because again, the way search engines and websites that pop up on Google, it's all based on clicks. You have organizations like behind the scenes trying to auction to get their website or their business higher up on the rank. So there's a lot going to it, but I feel like that's a whole different conversation another time. So I don't want to like completely spin off track, but obviously I love conversations like this.
Marketing.
Yeah. Just like this, I think it's just like you kind of open up the conversation as well. It's making me like a little passionate. I'm like, all right, like hold on, let's actually get into it. But I'm like, wait, hold on. Let's back on track. Beep. Let's get back on track. All right. So the next question I have here, and this was something that I remember you saying originally, like, I don't know if I want to answer this question because, like, I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. Exactly. Because I know.
Yeah.
So originally, the original question for everyone listening out there, and again, let me just reiterate. Again, this was something that I planned and we did talk about. The original question I had was, what are some issues that some marketing agencies aren't addressing to clients when they have a problem? And I know that's something that you really didn't want to like talk of. Obviously, that's a little messy, so we try to switch it around. So I wanted to ask you, like, what is something that I guess an issue for you based on the work that you do in Esbe Consulting that you feel you try to address? So again, we kind of have expand on it a little bit throughout this conversation, but you can be a little bit more specific on like maybe a common thing a lot of people come to you when it comes to your services, or maybe something they want to talk about with you that helps them to improve their marketing performance within their business.
It really varies. We get a lot of different types of issues depending on the objective of the client. I think the general overall theme is folks are stuck. They don't know what to do next. Either they've tried something, it didn't work, or they tried something, it didn't work as well, or they tried something that worked really well and they tried it again, but they couldn't replicate it. Or they are trying to engage a series of different people with different messaging, but they're not finding the right mix. So it's really a matter of again, going back to the audience, who are we talking to? And we start our assessment there. We start our assessment with research. We start our assessment with data. And we start to have some of those conversations around, well, what does the collaboration in this respect look like? How can we support you? And making sure that whatever we create is scalable on their end. One of the things, and I guess we'll kind of touch a little bit on your initial question, but one of the things that I know sometimes agencies do is they'll create something that's so complex that it requires a mediator, right? You have to go through them to access this tool. It's either proprietary, so you've got to license it, whatever the case may be. We want to make sure that clients also have the agency to have ownership and control over the plans we create so they can be replicated, right? We want to add value for the sake of add value. We don't want to add value and make ourselves so entrenched into your business that you can't operate without us, right? We always want it to be a choice and not a requirement.
I think that's absolutely crucial. I think you might have to repeat one more time for the people in the back that didn't hear exactly what you're saying, because that is so true. I feel like for a lot of businesses in general, if you have a service and you want to offer it to a client, I think what's really good and what will make me want to come back to that service and come back to that business, if the relationship we have, it's not that, like you mentioned, you're providing value, but once everything's done, I feel like, "Oh, I gotta go back to this person because I can't do it without them now." It's just like, oh, well, like I'm kind of like piggybacking or I'm relying on what they do. I think a really good business is that you can provide value, they can replicate it, and they'll still come back to you because of what you've done. Again, you mentioned the impact. I think that's something that SB Consultant is doing, like bringing that impact where this is what we can offer. These are the things that we're going to put in motion. And once you're ready to move on, then at least you have a foundation that can duplicate, continue to build, evolve. And that's also good too, because once you see that, those clients, they'll start talking to other people and it's like, hey, like I've noticed like you've been doing really good with like your marketing. Like, where did you go? I'm like, oh, SB Consultant. Like they'll get you right. They'll know exactly what to do. So I feel like when you show that type of consideration with your other clients, again, and we talked about this last week with our previous guests, when you have good audience members or a good audience in general, they kind of become your own marketing team. They'll start pushing the word out there saying, nah, like you need to connect with Sarah and SB Consulting because they're really doing their thing. They're really showing you that they can work together. You mentioned the example of a lot of market agencies mediator. Again, I don't want to get too into it, but like, again, there's certain things that I would say there's certain practices that certain agencies are putting in, but because of that, it kind of goes into a different route. So for you, I feel like you're definitely still trying to focus on, building and providing enough value where people are looking to just grow, but also it's in the sense of like, well, I can actually take this and work on it on my own, and I don't feel confused. I don't feel like, wait, what does this mean again? Oh, I gotta call Sarah. I'll figure. Okay, book another call. But like for you, it's like we're trying to put the seed into the floor and then into the ground and basically just kind of grow up from there. And while you're growing, it's like, oh, I can keep going, but I could always still have a support system like SB Consulting.
Exactly. And because that's our approach, what ends up happening is we become the in-house marketing team for a lot of our clients because we have that trust, we've built that rapport, and they choose to work with us, and I feel very privileged for that, where we have an opportunity to do work on a longer period for a longer period together, rather than working on kind of these one-off projects where then you're kind of indentured in to have to stay with us because we do something that's so complex or so proprietary that they can't change. And I find that that's especially true for the website offerings and our part of our service portfolio, because there are a lot of things to be coded. There are a lot of things that can be managed on the back end that become too difficult for any person to go on and update on their regular website. We try to stay away from that. We very much explain what the options are to let people know, the functionality is such on our site. If you want to do this, and this is going to be the requirement, you will or you won't be able to, go in and touch it. You'll need us or someone else to go in and do that. And we're just very upfront. And I find that it really it's our ethos. It is very much who we are in terms of our overall values, and it really helps to create long-lasting relationships with our clients in ways where, as I'd mentioned, we're a choice. Folks choose to work with us. They're not required to because of something that we've implemented. And having that repeat business, having those customers return, it is really the best feeling and the best value to really have people understand the impact that you're providing. People want to work with you, so they see the collaboration and the value that you bring, and then you're really able to create social change together.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Safe Room on Love Bay Radio here with the wonderful Sarah Beach, founder of Esbe Consulting and an audience engagement expert. I'm just looking at the comment section. Shout out to Chanel Williams, great conversation. Shout out to my twin, shout out to my twin sister watching us live. I appreciate it. We are well deep into the conversation, but now we're gonna switch things up a bit and we're gonna do our little activity segment. Now, this is something I want to do a little bit of role play. We tried it last, so we're gonna keep the good vibes going. So I want to kind of picture a scenario of us kind of doing, a marketing consultation. So I'm a client and you're trying to help me with, a particular problem or issue. Now, I'll be honest, this might be easy for you because you know what you're going to probably talk hard for me because I have to figure out what the heck could I say to you in this role play situation. So I'm just going to be very like discreet and just talk about something that I actually want to do, like, in the future, So
Okay.
I'm kind of putting something out right now. So I am trying to basically sort of like get back into YouTube. And I have been someone when it comes to YouTube, I have not been the best. I have been the definition of inconsistent, completely just not on my game. And that's just the case. But I want to get back to YouTube because I want to start a roundtable type of show on my YouTube channel. And I have reached out to about 3 individuals who I want to be as co hosts. But my issue is that it's a new idea. And like I said, I don't have that much of a presence on YouTube. So I'm really trying to figure out what is the best way to take in my audience, which right now resides on Instagram. And I'm trying to bring them to YouTube to kind of share about the stuff that I'm doing with this new roundtable. Now, mind you, because I've built up a following with my audience, people know about my podcast. So one thing a lot of people are asking me about, Shon, when are you dropping video episodes for your podcast? And
Right.
that's something that I've kept on hold. And I've said, it's coming soon. I got to find some time, but it's coming soon. So I was thinking in the back of my mind, maybe, if I start uploading video episodes and maybe this new roundtable show at the same time, it'll be a good idea. I'm still kind of confused because I just don't know how I want to go about it. And I just don't know even just the basic marketing tools to utilize for this, vision I have. So I would ask you, Sarah, like what would be a good starting point for someone like myself trying to start this roundtable show on my YouTube channel, but also during the fact I've already built an audience on a whole completely different platform and I'm trying to transfer them and not really like transfer them just like, oh, I lose my audience on Instagram, but like basically bring them along to my YouTube channel so people can see the stuff that I'm doing.
Yeah, two things. The first thing, integrated. You've got to be integrated in your approach in terms of what you're doing. So you've already got a large platform and a large following on some other social media channels. So leverage those appropriately. When you start to generate content, and you're going to have to be consistent, but when you start to generate content on your YouTube channel, make sure that you splice it out and that you share it across those other social media platforms. Create YouTube reels so that you have little shorts where you're sharing that in your stories and you're sharing that on your Instagram reels as well. The second thing, YouTube is really a search engine optimization. It is a tremendous opportunity to find content, and people can find you by searching. So SEO is going to be an important part of what you do as well, because you want to make sure that whatever you put on YouTube, you have in different places and spaces so that it's popping up in different areas. So it's really about that integrated content, really working through those multiple platforms, making sure that you tie that back into your website and that you have those SEO components so that you're searchable. So that search engine optimization, that's going to help do a lot of the work for you too.
Okay, okay, that sounds good. So you mentioned search engine optimization. So I know exactly what it is, but let's say for this situation, I have no clue what that is. So like what does that technically mean? Is that just like, oh, I should just start posting content hoping that people search me based on the volume of content I'm posting, or is it more strategic where I need to be mindful of like what I put in my descriptions or just how I go about with sharing this? Like, so maybe you could explain that to me.
Yeah, search engine optimization is huge, actually, in terms of what it entails. So, most simplistically, anytime that you're searching for something in Google, or I don't know who's using Bing, but if you're on Bing, whoever, go in there and you're searching for something, you're typing in a keyword. And anything that pops up is going to be attributed with that particular keyword. So what you want to do is make sure that whatever your content is about, you're using some of the highest ranked keywords. You can use Google keywords in order to identify what some of those keywords are. Then you have to integrate that strategically into your content, because content definitely rules. So you want to make sure that you have those keywords placed thoughtfully within that content. You don't want to overdo it because Google's not going to recognize that, but it will really help make sure that your content rises to the top. Anything that you see in kind of the top, certainly within the first page, but in those top three non-sponsored titles, the top of Google, those are really keyword generated, and they're going to be where you're getting the most amount of traffic, sometimes the most amount of reviews. It really depends.
Okay, that sounds really good. So let's say for myself, okay, now I have a good idea of just like what things I should keep in mind, but I don't have a marketing strategy. Like I don't know exactly how to actually put those stuff together. So is that something that maybe you can help me with to try to develop a marketing strategy that I can at least look at and follow, and I'm able to have objectives and I'm able to meet those objectives?
Definitely. And that's exactly where we start, is what are the goals? What are you trying to achieve? So you mentioned, wanting to showcase this podcast. But what is it, the YouTube podcast or the YouTube show? But what is it really about? What are going to be some of the key aspects that you talk about? You're going to want to build that out. You're going to want to look ahead, at least for the short term, for the, first month, first 3 months. What is it that you plan to discuss? How many episodes do you plan to release? How much content can you get from that? And then you're going to want to work backwards from that to make sure that you're integrating that across your platform thoughtfully. What else might you be sharing on your other platforms that you can cross-reference to push people back to your YouTube channel, to push people back to the website that's promoting the YouTube content? So you're going to want to make sure that you're very integrated and that you're achieving your objectives. Don't make your objectives too long. Don't make them too plentiful. Focus on, 2 or 3 key things that you really want to see happen within a fixed period of time. Maybe it's the first 6 months, maybe it's within the first year, and then go back and reassess your objectives after that time period, or check in after 6 months and then a year to see if you've achieved them, and rejig and tweak wherever you need to ensure that you are continuously building that momentum. And it will come. Sometimes it takes time, especially if you're doing it organically. If you're not putting any content behind any of the advertising, it's going to take a little bit longer for the organic content to occur, the organic migration to occur. So you're going to want to be patient and be mindful of that. And then also remember your algorithms, right? Every time you're posting something, 100% of the people that follow you aren't seeing 100% of your content. So you're going to want to make sure that you're frequent and consistent in that as well.
Okay, that sounds good. So I'll be completely honest. That all sounds fantastic, but I just don't have the time to do that. I think I might need some assistance. So is this something that you can actually like help me step by step to actually put together? And if so, like what would be the price for that? Because right now I have about like 2,000 in terms of like a budget that I want to use to probably create this, but I'm still not sure what the price range might be. So maybe is this something you can help me, and like what would be the pricing for this?
Great question in terms of pricing. So we'd actually would have to work out specifically what we'd be doing, we could do, what you need us to do, what our measures of success are, and then we build you out a package accordingly. But it's definitely something that we can help you with, and we'll certainly work within your range.
Okay, perfect, perfect. All right, that sounds great. Well, yeah, that's kind of like the role play that I wanted to get across. You did a great job answering the questions that I need to hear, and like, and listen, I know it was role play, but I was legitimately listening to you because I'm like, this is something I want to do. So I'm like, okay, like SEO, I got this. And I was kind of picking your brain. I'm like, okay, this is actually good to hear. I got to make sure I write this down later on. So it was role play, but it was also kind of like I'm getting your feedback as well.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing the show.
Yeah, I mean, like in terms of the idea, I mean, I want my YouTube channel to be a little bit more personal. I feel like on Instagram, it's mostly me on the business side of things, which is fine. But YouTube, I want to kind of be a little bit more goofier. I want people to see my personality. So I want to have like a roundtable discussion where it's more like talking on pop culture, music, sports, everything like that. So I mean, like I said, I have a couple of people in mind to do that, but I'm trying to work out the kinks. I'm definitely not trying to rush into it. I'm taking my time. I'm not gonna say I need to get this done like by the end of like the next 2 months. Like, no, I have something that I want to just gradually implement. But I'm really glad that you did mention about taking some of the stuff that I'm doing right now. How can I, push it to my YouTube channel so it doesn't feel like it's just very inconsistent or like it comes off so sudden that, oh, look, now I'm starting a roundtable. It's like, well, wait. Where did this come from? I thought you said you're going to be dropping something else completely. Something we've been asking for. So I think that's something I want to keep in mind as well. A lot of people said they want video episodes of my podcast. Like, okay, maybe I start off with that. Maybe I do that for about 3 to 6 months. And then when people start to get into it, it's like, okay, now let me actually put the roundtable idea now. So it's okay, if you like that, let's start doing something completely different. Now, if people start to, get engaged with that, then that's perfect. So I really appreciate the
Yeah.
feedback.
Yeah, and you really want to make sure that you're doing that on YouTube, because what you want to start doing is building the habit. You want to get people accustomed to integrating that as part of the channels with which to go to see you on, right? So that when you do drop it, it's second nature for them. It's very organic for them to see you on that platform, go to that platform, follow you on that platform, right? That subscribe, and make sure that they're there with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. So I do have one more thing. This is a surprise. So I know you didn't see the outline, but I wanted to keep it a surprise. I want to do just one final activity. It's a very fun one. It's a very fun one. I want to do a little game of
Uh-oh.
would you rather. It's nothing
Okay.
too harmful. So like don't worry, don't worry. This is just like again to see what your thoughts are in terms of like, some of the responses. And if you want to like elaborate on some of the responses, feel free. But I have a couple of questions. And mind you, I'm pulling this off of a website. Okay. I don't have it all written down. This is off of a website. So it's all vibes going on here. So
Okay.
first question I got. So would you rather communicate telepathically or know every single language on the planet?
Ooh. I'd rather know every language. I'd rather know
Okay.
every language and every dialect.
I agree. Honestly, that's my answer too. I feel like if you were able to communicate telepathically, at first it'd be cool, but then I would be freaked out. I would just be like, I do not want to be around this person because now it's like they're just communicating like without words. I can't see your mouth physically move. It's like that's going to scare me because like you don't. They might be thinking about what is this person in the back of their head. Like let me just like go up to them and approach them and just see what's up. It's like nah, that's it's
Yeah.
spooky.
What if I communicate by accident telepathically? Like, I didn't want to tell you that, and now I'm telling you. I don't like that.
Yeah, I feel like the language, knowing every single language, it's like, all right, I feel like it would make me want to travel more. I feel like sometimes the reason why I
Yeah.
want to travel is because obviously like there's the issue of time, obviously preparation, but also if I'm going to like a foreign country, it's like I don't know what most of the people are saying. But if I can speak every language, it's like, all right, okay, we're about to head to Dubai. That's the next move.
Yeah. I think it would give you a deeper appreciation too for all the different cultures, because you could really experience it in a way that's just much more emotive.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. I'm trying to pick another
Which
really,
would
really deep
you
question.
prefer every language too?
I do prefer every language. I that's the answer I would
Yeah.
probably go for because I think it's so good. Um, sorry, I'm really trying to figure out. A lot of these are like so random, so I'm trying to figure out like, okay, what fits well for the conversation here, but there's really nothing that's like clicking right now. So I'm probably just gonna grab something. Okay, here we go. Would you rather have a photographic memory or a perfect pitch? I'm not sure what they mean by perfect pitch. I'm assuming maybe like I don't know if it's on the business thing or maybe pitch based on like vocals, I guess.
Yeah, singing. I think it's singing. I sort of have a photographic memory for some things, but I cannot sing to save my life. So I'm gonna go pitch. I'd rather have a perfect
Yeah.
pitch.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I would probably go with that. Um, so the final question I have here, and this one I feel very interesting one. Would you rather always be underdressed or always be overdressed?
Overdressed.
Yeah,
Always. Always.
yeah. I feel like it's always be overdressed. If I show up underdressed, I'm not showing up anywhere then. It's needs to
Yeah.
make sure I look spiffy and clean.
Yeah. Can you ever really be overdressed? I mean, yeah.
I mean, listen,
In
you'll
no
be
country.
surprised sometimes when you go out to places and you see how like I don't even want to get into that because I don't want to start coming after people, but you just know like there's just certain things you gotta keep inside your heart and not say out loud. But I am someone like I want to make sure that I look presentable. I want to show that I'm here. I'm here for business, or even if it's just like a regular social event. I want to let people know that you're an approachable person, and again, you are how you dress. So I would say overdressed
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. And you never know where someone's going afterwards. They could be dressed just right for
Exactly.
that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, okay. So, yeah, that kind of wraps up everything. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on to the Safe Room here on Love Bay Radio. We enjoyed your time here. You shared a lot of great, valuable information. Even for me, that role play, I'm telling you, I'm definitely going to reflect after this. So, thank you.
Thanks for having me. It was great to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So before we head off, tell people where they can find you or contact you.
You can find us at www.sbconsulting.com. You can also find me on Instagram at mssarahebeach on Instagram.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Thank you again. And thank you to everyone listening. You can follow us at the Safe Room on Instagram at the Safe Room Official. If you want to check out our previous episode as well, go to Spotify and Apple Podcast, type in the Safe Room. You will find us there. So, I mean, we're gonna be here every single Thursday. We're just getting started. This was our second appearance here live on Love Bay Radio under the Safe Room. So I'm excited for future conversations. And thank you to everyone in chat for all your warm comments. My sister, like you're number one. I'm seeing all the comments she's sitting right here. I appreciate it. She also said you did a great job, Sarah. So she's kind of
Thank you.
giving you your props as well.
Thank you. I gotta say hi to Mark too because I saw him drop something in the chat. Hi, Mark.
Yes, 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 yes. We love to engage chat. Hopefully, we get more people on, and like we might have to do like a segment where we just fully ask questions in the chat. So I don't know. Like, ideas are popping in the back of my head. They're popping in the back of my head, but we'll have to see what the future beholds. But again, thank you to Sarah. Thank you to everyone listening, and we'll see you guys next time.